Hey guys, Vazzy back here, and in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at all the real-life coaches featured in NHL 2005. So if you guys didn't know, NHL 25 is not the first game to feature real-life coaches. This was something that was in past games, but obviously something that we haven't seen for quite a while leading up until this year. So we're going to go through, take a look at what all these guys look like. Unfortunately, there is no actual coach card to look at to my knowledge, so the only way to really get a good visual of them is by loading up the pre-game introductions from NHL 2005, and it does show off the coaches very briefly. And unfortunately, it doesn't always give us the best view of each of these coaches, but we can do our best and try and see if EA at least was on the right track with most of these guys. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Anaheim Ducks and take a look at the coaches from NHL 2005. So starting out with the Anaheim Ducks, and believe it or not, that apparently is supposed to be Mike Babcock. I don't really see it here. Again, as we go through each of these coaches as well, I'm going to put a picture of what the coach obviously looks like in real life. And Babcock, to me, definitely doesn't look as good as he should be here. But with this game in particular, it is very hit or miss on if these guys are looking good or not. So that's Mike Babcock. Let's move on to the Atlanta Thrashers. And with the Atlanta Thrashers, we see the addition of Bob Hartley. Obviously Flames coach later on in his career. Honestly, he doesn't look as bad as some of these guys do in game. Again, it's not perfect, but I can kind of see where they're going with, and at least it kind of somewhat resembles him. Moving over to the Boston Bruins, and we have Coach Mike Sullivan. And not the best view of him here, it is a little bit zoomed out. We will see this continue throughout the episode, but it's a very generic look. It doesn't not look like him, but at the same time, I wouldn't be able to tell you that is Mike Sullivan. Moving over to the Buffalo Sabres, we actually have their current head coach, that being Lindy Ruff. Honestly, Lindy Ruff doesn't look too bad here. Obviously the graphics aren't great from a game this old, but you can kind of see what they were going with, and at least it somewhat does resemble Lindy Ruff. Also, with Lindy Ruff being an NHL 25, let me go and throw up the picture of him from that year's game. And obviously I would go with the NHL 25 version. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of it overall, I at least can tell once again that that is Lindy Ruff, and the graphics are quite a bit nicer with the current day's game. And up next from the Calgary Flames, we have their head coach, Daryl Sutter. And honestly, not the best example here. I can kind of see a very small resemblance in the face. I honestly don't remember him that much with the super dark hair. I always kind of remember when he was a little bit older with the more gray hair. So I don't know, maybe it was more accurate to back in 2005. But yeah, there's definitely better, but there is definitely worse from this game. Moving over to the Carolina Hurricanes, their head coach at this time was Peter Laviolette. Obviously current head coach of the New York Rangers. Once again, very generic look here. I wouldn't really say that he's honestly even that much better in NHL 25. Again, I thought he had a pretty generic look in that game. And yeah, definitely better, definitely worse. Wouldn't say that is Peter Laviolette just by looking at him. And up next from the Chicago Blackhawks, we have their head coach, Trent Ianni. Not the best view of him, but yeah, very generic look. Honestly, I wouldn't say it looks dissimilar to him, just the dark hair, and just very generic looking build here as a coach. And honestly, I can see what they were going for with him, and I think that this is definitely one of the better ones so far. And from the Colorado Avalanche, we have a very familiar face, that being Joel Quenneville. Did not realize he was the head coach of the Colorado Avalanche at this time, but he looks pretty good. He's got the mustache, and I can definitely see what EA was going for here. Does kind of suck that we don't get a closer look at him here in this intro. And moving over to the Columbus Blue Jackets, another very recognizable name here as their head coach, as at this time their head coach was Gerard Gallant. Did not realize he was the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and honestly you can't see this face too good here, but I actually think the model here for Gerard Gallant actually does kind of somewhat resemble him. Again, definitely a lot worse from this year. Continuing over here to the Dallas Stars, and everything that I've read says that Dave Tippett is their coach. clearly here he has a very recognizable mustache, which I cannot find on a lot of photos here online. So I don't know if this is something that is out of date or if I just can't find great photos for him. But yeah, that's supposed to be Dave Tippett. I definitely would not say that looks like him to me. Taking a look at the Detroit Red Wings head coach in game here next, that being Dave Lewis. This one here definitely does not meet the level of quality I think needed here. First off, the hair is totally off, does have the mustache, is missing the glasses. Definitely one of the weaker models from this game. The Edmonton Oilers come up next here in our run through, and that is supposed to be Craig MacTavish. I don't think that looks really anything like Craig MacTavish, at least from photos I've seen. Once again, similar to Dave Lewis, this model is definitely a bit of a letdown. Moving over to the Florida Panthers up next, and their head coach at the time being Jacques Martin. Honestly, I can kind of see what they were going with. The hairstyle's similar, the face doesn't look too dissimilar. Again, I'm not saying it's a great look, but I can see what they were going with, and for me that is really what I am looking for here. Moving on to the Los Angeles Kings head coach at the time being Andy Murray. And I'd say the same things about Andy Murray as I would Jacques Martin. I wouldn't say they're too dissimilar. I kind of see what EA at least was going for. They have the right color hair, the face isn't too bad. Not perfect, but it is a good attempt. Looking at the Minnesota Wild up next, and their head coach Jacques Lemaire. And honestly, I think Lemaire looks pretty good. Once again, they're on a bit of a trend here. The hair looks pretty good, it's not too dissimilar, and overall just very similar sentiments to the past few coaches. At least EA did put in the effort, and it doesn't look too bad. The Montreal Canadiens come up next with their head coach Claude Julien. And to me, this is one of the worst ones I think we've seen so far. I couldn't find a great picture of him when he was younger, back from 2005, but nothing here reminds me of Claude Julien. This one definitely might be one of the worst ones we've seen so far. Moving over to the Nashville Predators, their head coach and now general manager, that being Barry Trotz. And this is a very young Barry Trotz. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's bad necessarily, not like the Claude Julien one we just saw. I don't know, I'd kind of put this one in the middle. It doesn't totally remind me of Barry Trotz, but I can kind of see a little bit of resemblance there. The New Jersey Devils are up next with their head coach, Pat Burns. And this one to me is actually really good. I can totally see who they were going for. If you were just to show me this coach and kind of give me the right era, I could definitely tell you that would be Pat Burns. I don't know if it's the best one we've seen so far, but it is definitely up there. Moving over to the New York teams up next, starting with the New York Islanders head coach Steve Sterling. This one to me definitely does miss the mark a little bit. I don't know, maybe it's just because he's missing his glasses. I don't know, the hair's not great either. I kind of get some similar vibes, but definitely not one of the best ones that we've seen so far. Staying with New York, but moving over to the Rangers and their head coach Tom Renney. This one to me looks absolutely nothing like what he should be. This one's up there with Claude Julien to me. I don't know what they were going with, and I was honestly kind of confused and even questioning if I had the right guy. This one definitely is near the bottom of the list. The Ottawa Senators are up next with their head coach Brian Murray. Again, I would probably put this one, toward the middle of the pack. I don't think it's dissimilar to him, but I don't think it looks perfect as well. I don't know. Don't have too much to say about Brian Murray. Definitely middle of the pack when it comes to coaching models. Moving over to the Philadelphia Flyers and their head coach at the time being Ken Hitchcock. And honestly, I think this is a pretty good model for him. I don't know if I'd say it's the best one once again that we've looked at, but I can definitely see Ken Hitchcock here. Got the nice white hair, the face, looks not too bad. Yeah, I would put this one toward the top of the coaching models list. Up next, we have now the unfortunately defunct Phoenix Coyotes. Now, I actually had a bit of an issue with this one, that being I couldn't exactly tell who this was. This is either Rick Bowness, which is who I'm kind of leaning toward, or it's Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky was coach of the team, I want to say starting in 2005-06, and Bowness was the coach ending in 3-4. So again, I don't really know who they went for the model here. To me, it looks a little bit more like Rick Bowness, and you know, it doesn't look great, doesn't look bad. I would put it toward the middle of the pack. Looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins up next and their head coach, Ed Olczyk, I don't think it's too bad. Again, a very generic look. We kind of have seen that quite a bit throughout this video. Obviously, graphics were limited back then. If I had to rate it, I'd probably once again just kind of go middle of the pack. Going over to the San Jose Sharks up next, I think we might actually have one of the best looking, most accurate coach models in the game. That being of San Jose Sharks head coach Ron Wilson. And honestly, I can totally see the face if you have that side by side. The hair looks good. I can totally see Ron Wilson there. And yeah, props DA, it actually looks not too bad here. Getting closer to the end of our list here today with the St. Louis Blues head coach Mike Kitchen. I'm going to be honest with you, I've never heard of Mike Kitchen before, and I don't think this looks particularly like him. I would probably have this closer to the bottom. Looking at my Tampa Bay Lightning here up next, we have their former head coach, John Tortorella. Honestly, I think this is up there for one of the better looking coaching models. This one may be a little bit more of a controversial take. I know his beard isn't really showing up as good there, but I can definitely kind of see a little bit more of that resemblance in the face. And honestly, if you're putting the NHL 25 model up against this one, I really do not like that model. I would say that the one in 2005 at least kind of resembles him a little bit better. Moving over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I know this is one that a lot of people will have been waiting for. That being Leafs head coach Pat Quinn. This is honestly, again, one of the better models I think in game. I did a side video that's going to be coming out in probably a couple months from now, going over NHL 2005, and I ended up playing a game with Pat Quinn as head coach, and I instantly knew, I even said in the video, that to me looks like Pat Quinn, and yeah, I cannot say that about all the models here today. Two more teams, two more coaches to look at here today. From the Vancouver Canucks, we have Mark Crawford. Unfortunately to me, this one definitely doesn't meet the mark, as well as some others that we have already looked at. I don't see Mark Crawford here. He has a very distinct look, but yeah, this one definitely toward the bottom of the list for me. And last coach here to look at here today, from the Washington Capitals, Glenn Hanlon. Unfortunately, we do end this one on a bit of a negative. I don't think this looks anything like the picture of Glenn Hanlon. He looks a lot younger in the picture. I don't know. To me, it doesn't look great. But last coach we're looking at here today, unfortunately, would end up closer to the bottom of the list. But I think overall, that is going to do it for today's video, looking at all the real-life coaches from NHL 2005. It's really cool to look at this and look at the coaches that now we finally got back in NHL 25. And this is something that I haven't seen anybody really talking about online or, showing pictures of these coaches from these older games. It is very hit or miss to whether they look like themselves or not. We went through everyone here today. I'm sure you guys have your own opinions on who looks good and who does not. Definitely leave that all down in the comments below. But that will do it for today's video. I will see you all in the next one.